Hi everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Zero to One. We are now over 3 months into this series with the community, and we're really enjoying the content that's been created so far, the discussion that's been had, the just tons of great wisdom and insight in terms of what members can take from it and apply in their day-to-day work, whether you're a freelancer, an entrepreneur, small business owner, or somebody who's maybe considering joining fellow independent doers in what they're doing as well. So yeah, we're really glad to see some familiar faces and new faces joining us this week. And we're also extremely grateful for Kiky, who's joined us today to share a bit about his journey and also, a framework that's helped him, do the best he can and get the best out of himself as well, which he's going to share a bit more with you. So thanks, Kiky, for joining us. Maybe we kick off a little bit about your background and because I know you're, multidisciplined in that sense, writer, author, business owner, and so on.
All right. First of all, thank you, Jamie, and Yasas for having me, and for Louis to connect with us. I think I have already shared a little bit on the introduction video, but my name is Kiky. I'm Indonesian. I've been living in Indonesia, France, and Singapore in the past 47 years of my life. And my background in terms of the professional context is I started my career as a software engineer. So that was back in 2001 in France. And since then, I've been going through a variety of roles in my corporate life. I spent in with my first company for almost 18 years, and the second company I stayed for 4 years before finally I decided to be a solopreneur or entrepreneur starting in Feb 2023. Uh, in that professional life, so far, then what I have been doing was preparing myself actually for this journey. And so I would love to use this session, especially with fellow doers, to really, as an invitation for everyone to embark on the journey to the best version of yourself. So I think along this session, I would love to have the interaction, see the questions, and also be as interactive as possible.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kiky. And just a reminder for those of you who do have any questions, please do share those. There is a button at the bottom on the Zoom window which says Q&A. If you put it in there, then we'll be alerted when the question comes in. You can also use the chat box, but sometimes that does get missed. There's been a couple of occasions where, we've seen it later and we've addressed it. But yeah, please do put your questions in. And yeah, we want to, as we said, if you also want to offer your own perspectives, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you as well. And you're welcome to do that as well. So as Kiky mentioned, we want to make this interactive. So thanks, for that introduction as well, Kiky. So I guess over to you, kick off, where you'd maybe a bit about your journey. You said as a solopreneur, working as a software engineer. Like I think from a member point of view, there's always a curiosity and an excitement when others such as yourself have made that decision to move from maybe working for an employer or a corporate space or something into running your own business and following maybe a different passion in that sense as well. So if you don't mind maybe sharing a little bit more about that would be really good.
All right. So the fact that I've been waiting for this journey to happen more than 20 plus years, it has something to do with what I actually shared in the book, the trigger or the switch that made it happen, right? And so over 22 years plus during my professional journey, since beginning, I always wanted to have a business on my own. And so hence the reason why throughout my career, I have been intentionally trying different roles with the idea of learning a certain aspect of the business from the development point of view to leading a team to doing operations, doing as an integration manager of an acquisition, then moving toward the customer centric or the customer facing on the role of sales and so on, right? So I've been accumulating all of this experience, knowledge. Obviously, it cannot be as deep as someone who stayed there for 10 years or 20 years, right? But it was my attempt to get myself ready. Yet, if you notice, that has been going on for more than 20 years, right? And so there is something
Mm.
that was missing. What is it that actually needed to push me to finally take the leap? And that push actually happened in December 2022 when my market unit was closed in my second company. So I was heading a cross market business unit in a company where it was a pioneer in Asia in term of the center. I joined as employee number 20 something in Asia, and we grew close to 300 in three locations: Singapore, Hong Kong, and Vietnam back then. And I was always been interested in the cross market because of its variety, because of its challenge. It's something new. The industry will be different from one to another. The problem that we are solving is different, and so on and so forth. Without going to too much detail, the cross market itself, by definition, it has a challenge because we are opening new account, which means we are hunting. The type of account that we open, the willingness to pay obviously will be less, and the effort that we need to do to actually get it and to serve and so on will be high. By design, it's just the nature of it, right? But as we grew, we reached a certain point where things or account that we have already gathered becomes more profitable, obviously, and it just makes more sense for that company at that point of time to focus on those business units. And so the cross markets and its accounts becomes just an opportunistic part. So when my market was closed, I actually had the choice of either stay but doing things that I've done 4 years prior, or part ways. And so we parted ways. And then again, that was the junction of, do I need to capture another job? Do I need to find another job, continue again, learning again? Or do I need to take the step and finally do what I want, right? So it's true that this learning point has been important, but I realized that it could have been another form of procrastination, right? Just keep learning, and when do I actually take the step? And so the story of that particular decision making is something which I will not forget. And that's also one of the point that I shared with Yasas in terms of this for this session, where what we call the Kairos moment. So I'm not sure, maybe you guys can put in the chat for those who already heard about Kairos versus Chronos, and who haven't heard, just put it in the chat. But in a nutshell, it's Chronos and Kairos is a notion of time, or the god of time, I think, in the Greek mythology, where the Chronos is about sequence, seconds, minutes, hours, days, and so on. And when it comes to Kairos, it's about a quality of the time. It's something that is pivotal in your life. Maybe when you propose to your girlfriend to become your wife, maybe when you have your first child, maybe when you decide, just like in this case, to become an entrepreneur. And so that Kairos moment for me to move from the corporate life to this journey now happens right after the cross market was closed. And back then I was in this decision making process, right? I was then invited by a client, ex-client, to work in this company, and I said, even if I want to, I couldn't, because I have a non-competitive clause for that.
Mm.
And when that ex-client was asking, like, so what you are going to do next? Are you going to continue finding another job? Frankly speaking, I don't know. So that was in early December 2022. And I told him, I'm going away. And that was mid-December, sorry. And I said, I'm going away for a vacation, something that I have been planning with my wife. It was our 10 years wedding anniversary. And so we already planned this trip to Japan for a couple of months actually. And so off we go. We went to Japan, and I told this person, I will let you know after I came back from my vacation. And so during that vacation, I was looking around, I was thinking, I was pondering, doing a bit of planning, comparing pros and cons, and so on. Until we went to this place called Hakuba in Japan. It was a ski place. There is a couple of resorts and place. And that was when the Kairos moment for me happened, because what happened was we arrived as a family in this small ski resort. I had two kids.
Mhm.
So I told my wife, hey, I'm going to find a place where all of us can learn how to ski. And because I took a ski lesson for my first time 5 years before that in 2015 or 16. And my wife said, but the time is only like 3 hours left or 4 hours left. And just try. If you couldn't make for the whole of us, just go ahead. I know you need it. And I think it's good for you. And I will just play with the kids somewhere else with all the snow and so on, right? So I arrived at that place. It was just a lobby with people sitting and people changing and so on and so forth. And I saw this table was just one small table in the corner, and there was this one mobile phone with a cable attached to it. And then there was instruction: if you want to talk to the instructor, just use this mobile phone and dial this number.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, that was interesting. There's nobody was sitting on the reception and so on. And I was standing there waiting for this other person that was using the mobile phone to have a discussion. And as I was queuing, then different thoughts come to my mind. I've been learning the ski, right? 5 years back, just one session. I managed to somewhat do it. And then I draw the parallel to all of the things that have happened in my professional life. I've been learning programming, I've been learning deployment, I've been learning operations, I've been doing solution sales, I've been doing as account manager, I've been doing as a head of market, and so on and so forth. And I said, do I still really need another lesson? Or should I just figure things out during this moment? And so at that time, I decided to leave the place, and I just, okay, I'm going to decide, I'm going to figure out things out. I'm going to see where I can rent the gear. I'm going to see how I can put it to myself, how to go up on the slope and so on, right? And it was really intentional that, okay, I really drawing a parallel with my decision making of whether I should be finding a job or finally to. So I found out everything. I put myself. If you it took me a couple of minutes to figure out how to go to the slope because all the machine was not in English, and I tried to talk to stranger on how to get up to the cable car to go to the top. But finally, I reached on the top, and at that moment, I realized that it was okay. This is really symbolizing of what I need to do. I need to take the leap of faith. I need to do it to do this entrepreneurship journey. And so I've learned all my life. And if I fall, which I know I will get up again. And so
Mm.
I recorded myself, take a picture, take a video. This is the moment coming back to Japan. I'm going to open my own company. And I went down beginner slope. What should have been 5 minutes became a 30 minutes down, probably more. I don't know how many times I fell down in that going down until in the middle. I remember I couldn't get up because I was so tired. And there's a couple that thought, are you injured? Are you okay? Oh yeah, I'm just too tired to get up. I just need to take a rest for a moment, right? Yet I get up again, I slide again, and so on. Finally, I reached the bottom, and then I went for the second one. And obviously, on the second one, it just went better. And so, to me, that is one of the Kairos moment, which is linked to this decision of finally taking the leap. And a few days after, when I came back to Singapore, I rang the person, are you still interested in working with me? Yes. If I were to open my own company, would you? Okay, yeah, I would love to. Okay, give me a couple of weeks. Let me figure things out, how to open the entity and so on,
Mhm.
and we'll discuss again. So that was my Kairos moment in the professional life. One of them, right? The one that was the closest one and probably the biggest one for me. And what I wanted to convey in this session was to invite people to understand this type of Kairos moment and to really use it as a trigger, as a switch, I call it, when we need to take a decision, when we need to sustain what we want, what we are doing, and when things got tough, we can actually use that. And so that was my first point related to the Kairos moment. And I just need to give credit to this person, someone quite well known. His name is Tim Urban. He is the
Yep.
Yeah, I think many people would know, right? He wrote this one of in his blog back 2014, if I'm mistaken. His blog is called With But Why. He was talking about your life in weeks. And so the idea was to say, if someone lives for 90 years, I hope I can live for 90 years. If we simply divide this 90 years as a, let's say, as an Excel spreadsheet, right? 90, imagine a picture and 90 rows. That's your life in years. And in rows, imagine you divide it into 12 or into 52 weeks. And if you think back, you will be able to see your Kairos moment actually. You can plot it out in the past. When you managed to get to the university of your dream, when you decided for your first job, when you decided to become entrepreneur, when you have your kids and so on and so forth. And that was something which is now becomes even more stronger because that Kairos moment, we can not only think about the past, but now we can actually imagine and plan it for the future. We can actually think, okay, now I'm 47. Maybe at by 50, this is what is going to happen. And I will then strive to actually make that happen. And so that was really one of the key points that I want to share related to this Kairos moment. And then the second point in which I shared in the summary or in the teaser of this discussion is that once we understand about the importance of this Kairos moment, the importance of how we reflect back and the importance of how it can be used as a trigger, then we can combine with the more typical blueprint for transformation. And what I mean by that is that we know the importance of the why we do things, right? The core driver of a change, whether it is in the professional context, whether it is in the health context, whether it is in the different things. The understanding of the why, the understanding of the what, the vision, what is the outcome if the change that we strive for really happen, what does it look like? And from then on, we know that we can reverse engineer and say, how do we achieve in what we have visualized, right? So that is more typical of the transformation blueprint, I would say. We have plenty of resources, very good authors, very good people that have already shared about this. But something that is always missing, in my opinion, that we don't talk enough is about this notion of the switch, of the triggers. Because quite often, people already understand why do they need to change. People understand, they can imagine in the context of entrepreneurship, they can imagine, I don't want to have a ceiling, let's say, in terms of my income, in terms of my the joy experience and so on. I can imagine myself to become an entrepreneur. I know how to start a company. I know what the things that need to be done, but somehow we just don't take the action, right? And so that is the one that I call the switch, the trigger, that could be coming from something which is external, like for example, the case that I just mentioned, but also something which could be internal. And that is actually what I wrote in the book. When I go a bit deeper in terms of this switch, what type of switch there are, uh, intellectual, emotional, that is important, as well as positive and negative switch. And so this is what I want to convey, because I observe that different change, regardless of the context, regardless of the roles, what are the common denominator? What is the pattern that can actually make us want to take the first step, but also be able to sustain when the consistency is needed, when the pushback is there, and so on. And so that is really the concept of the switch, the trigger, that in my experience in this past 2 years and a half, where finally at 45, I opened my own company. Finally, at 46, I was able to reach a physical state which I never attained before, not even in my 20s. And at 47, finally, I was able to then launch my first book, something that I have postponed for 15 years. And finally, that is also done, right? So I hope that the same principle is able to be used not just by me, but as many as possible with the same pattern. Obviously, the application will be different from one to another. And just going toward the end of this framework or this pattern, in my book, I actually split it into 12 chapters. The first 8 chapters is about internal, and the last 4 chapters is about external. Now, the internal part for this transformation, it started with the blueprint of transformation, understanding the why, what, and how, talking about the switch, talking about the Kairos moment, looking back, talking about the different type of switch, and so on. The culmination of it is actually what I mentioned in chapter 8, which is shaping the who, not just the why, what, and how, but the who we are. And so the pattern that I see is that if we are able to change, and during the transformation, we shape our own identity, we mold our own identity with a certain technique, a certain way, that change will come faster and it will last longer, if not permanently. So that's in a nutshell what I would really want to for people to get like a takeaway from today's session.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks for that, Kiki. I think I'm sure there's going to be a few more questions coming in the chat in a moment. But I guess one of the things I was curious about, based on the framework that you mentioned, and I suppose just rewinding to that Kairos moment, in that sense, that moment that it feels like this is a time to shift, a time to consider a different path, and things like that. I guess it's like, how did you, I suppose, overcome that inner feeling that you get? And I know you mentioned in your book that there are many chapters focusing on the internal, and I do think the internal can have such an influence on it, because of things like maybe your anxiety, if you've got any self-doubt over certain things. Like you mentioned, all the different departments that you were learning in, which is something our members do say to us. They say to us sometimes, okay, I'm not somebody who's naturally a salesperson, so how do I go out and sell this business, even if I understand the industry or the technology, whatever it might be, in that sense? So I guess it's like, what did you do, because you were in a position where all of a sudden your role was no longer available, or at least in the way you wanted it, and so I suppose it's like there's an external force of that event happening, but then internally, how do you then say, right, instead of me just saying I'm gonna go the safer route, or what seems to be a safer route of into continued corporate employment, versus saying, right, I'm going to take this leap? Like, how did you overcome that? Was it talking to friends or mentors, or just internal things you would do? Like, I guess it'd be good to get a little bit more insight into that. So
Okay.
it's quite a long question, but just to frame it.
I hope I'll be able to capture and answer to the essence. There are two type of switch that I was using back then, and what I call the intellectual trigger, the intellectual switch, and the emotional switch. And so in the intellectual one, it's about the clarity and the visualization. And the emotional one is about the desire and the fear. So, and the way I was then working on it is I always explain to people that ask me, is there a right sequence of things, right? Do you need to be put in a situation where you have no choice first before you actually can take the leap? Or is it something that is possible that you can actually take the leap? And there is no right or wrong about it. What I really believe is that luck favors the prepared one. And so the fact that I've been preparing for my entire career, that had helped a lot in terms of the intellectual clarity. Because the moment I decided to choose, obviously I don't have all the answers until now. I still don't.
Mm,
But I know roughly how does a company would actually need to work. How would I need to deal with clients? How should I get clients? If I were to work with someone else as a partner or as a team, how do I do that? If I were to create a product, how should I go about it? And so on and so forth. And the fact that it is something which I have experienced, that was the preparation, right? And so that create the intellectual clarity on my side. The one that didn't happen or happened only because I was put in that position was the emotional one. And so the
mm,
emotional one was, okay, now my mantra back then, during that 1 to 3 months, is put food on the table. I'm the head of the family. How do I bring the food for my family to put it to put it
yeah,
really on raw, right? And so now I need to do something. I need to do anything which requires, but something which is smarter, obviously. With all of this accumulation, with all of this intellectual clarity that I have, the experience part, then now pushed by this emotional part. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to plan. And worst come to worst, I give it a try. I failed, and I can find another job. Uh, in
yeah,
in 1 year time, if I failed, and I will find another job. But if I don't do this one, I can picture myself, I can visualize myself at my 60, and then I will say, oh, why didn't I do it back then, right? And so I was using that, and I was blessed enough. I'm really grateful that my wife supported me. And before I have the accountability partner, I have a supporter first, right? And so she said, go ahead. I'm going to come back to the workforce, so to cushion a bit of the blow, because in the past couple of years where we had our second son, I told her, uh, take a break, something that I didn't have the luxury to learn whatever it is. We don't need to go on the workforce and so on and so forth. So she did that for 3 years. And on that year, then he said, okay, I'm going to get back to the workforce, right? Which is something which, no, I'm ready. I'm going, and you go ahead and you try. You do your best and so on. So that was the supporter that I needed. And some of the other supporter was from my friends. One of them being Luis as well. So one of the person that I met after I already opened the entity. But this type of friend supporters that become accountability was some of them is my old friends who has already started a business long time ago in Indonesia. I have a couple of different friends in Indonesia and in US. I talk to them, I discuss, I explain the situation, I explain what was your learning point and so on and so forth. And from someone that supported, at the end become accountability partner, because then we turn into business partners. Then we craft into agreement how we can work together, how we can refer from one to another, and so on. And so all of this part is the one that help. But I will be lying if I say, okay, just because of that, and it's ready now, I'm fully put, because it's just not. And we just need to start. And I think everyone here who have taken that change, especially for those who were in the corporate life and then become entrepreneur, I think all of us have already experienced that part.
Vicky, thank you very much. I just want to ask, in the field of entrepreneurship,
Mm.
something that kind of bothers people is the idea itself Like, what am I going to do if I quit the job or if I lose the job, right? Like, you go on your own, but then they want to do it sometimes. They kind of want to get that freedom. They want to do something on their own. Yes, they have that internal interest, but at the same time, what kind of worries them is the idea itself. Like, do I have a good idea? Is it something that has a need in the market? Will there be customers for this? So I guess, how would you go about that, like verifying the idea itself? Obviously, it might be slightly different for a freelancer, contractor, consultant versus a startup. For a startup, you might have to have a fairly full-blown idea. You might not do it on day one. You will build it over a period of time, but you at least have a blueprint. But even for a freelancer, the other side, you still need to know, I have this 20 years of career experience, which you had, but you wouldn't do all that for your clients, right? You would carve out an area where you would be the expert, and you would pitch those services to clients. So I just want to understand, like, how you would go about verifying the idea itself. Is this something that's worthwhile doing? Is this something that would kind of be required in the market before you kind of do that leap?
I think the idea of doing the leap sounds very exciting, right? Very, very good, especially for people who took the leap and really made it and be successful, which is if the statistic doesn't change, it's just 5% who still stays after taking the leap and stay successful beyond 5 years, right? So I would take a more realistic way for majority of the people. Instead of waiting for take the leap of faith, I would say focus on the effort first. And what I mean by that is do a side hustle. Do something which is beyond your current work, right? Because I'm in this opinion of, if everyone is entrepreneur, then how would the world works? It's just not possible, right? There's got to be people who is part of the company, which is not an entrepreneur, and there's nothing wrong with it. And so, while the idea of that leap is really exciting, really good, and so on, I would say for the majority, start with the focus on the effort, start with the side hustle, validate some of the ideas. If you are good at design, try to propose your offer as a design. You might not get big numbers out of it, but you will learn a lot in trying to sell, in trying to position yourself. You're doing your personal branding and so on. And why I say focus on the effort, because some people say, oh yeah, if I do my own business, I will be less busy, which is not true, right? We know it's not true. It's actually even more. And so if you are able to do the side hustle, starting with the side hustle, obviously it goes without saying that you must deliver your main job properly, no conflict of interest, and so on and so forth. That one goes without saying. But if you complain, if you cannot get the energy to work on your side hustle after you have done with your work, for whatever reason, which could be justified or not justified, at night, over the weekend, and so on, it will be even more difficult when you jump and you have the constraint of financial. You have the constraint of time on your side, right? So obviously, some people might argue, no, but you will not have the same drive if you are not in that position. But I would say for the majority of the people, focus on the effort, focus on what you are enjoying, what you think you are really doing well. Find your ikigai in a sense, and then give it a try. That ikigai, by offering your service for free, for example. Offer to a certain particular people that you can reach out in LinkedIn or in different part and offer it for free. I want to create this product, offer it for free, and so on. And I think that way they can already people can already appreciate what kind of effort is needed, what type of cycle is needed, and what type of psychological cycle when they find out that, okay, I thought I have the best idea, but when I talk to people, seems nobody care about it. even one to couple of people only, and they actually not even interested in it. And when I throw it to one to many people, nobody responded to it, for example, right? And that will also have the psychological effect as well. And so if a majority of people can just go through this cycle without the pain of letting go of the job and so on, I think that would be more ideal. Eventually, then when we arrive at a certain point where okay, now it's really time to go, I think it's good. Of course, some people will be not in this type. Some people will just really entrepreneur on their side and just go and lead and become the trailblazer. And so that would be a group of people that is different, I would say. And that was true when I was starting with all the different experience knowledge that I have. So what do I sell? What do I do? So should I create a product first and then try it out? So should I sell my knowledge, my value in helping others? What is it that I really care about? And so I had the privilege to really go deeper into this phase. And what I found out, as at least as a start, I actually wanted to help business owners, small and medium, to be successful in their venture. And when I was digging a bit further, why do I want to do that? I then realized that it comes to my own background, where my parents tried to do their business. They were successful for a while, and then they went bankrupt because they didn't have the system, they didn't have the proper tool. They tried to scale, but couldn't make it. And it didn't just impact the company, but it impacted the family. And if I were to help other founders to actually make sure that, or not, at least give all the tools, all the possible way to do better, I think that would be something which is satisfying. And so that's what I did as a start. So come to the question, yes, I hope it answers, but it's really, there is two type of way how to approach it and what to do about it.
Thanks for that.
Thank you,
That was,
Kiky.
yeah, great answer. Yeah. And also just wanted to sort of just tie back to what you said a couple of minutes ago, a couple of things that I maybe takeaways I took from it, which was, one in particular, which is that you should try these things if you can, because a little bit like, I suppose, from my point of view, like I grew up in the UK, and then I made a decision through a work opportunity to go and live in Hong Kong for a year, and then that ended up becoming over 10 years now and
It's a
counting.
Kairos moment for
But
you, yeah? Yep.
but yeah, absolutely. It was definitely one of those moments where, it was the furthest I'd ever lived away from home. And you start to question, okay, I'm not going to see my family and friends as much. And at that point I couldn't speak any Chinese or anything like that either. So yeah, there's all these sorts of things in your mind. But the reality is that the world is small enough and travel is accessible enough now that if it didn't work out, I could always get a flight and I'd be back in the UK in about 12 hours time. So it's one of those, I think it's the same thing. You can start a business, and of course, obviously you will still invest some time and money into it, but it's not like, you don't have to go to the point where you go bankrupt in that sense. If it's not working, you can pivot, or you can decide, actually I want to do something different. So, but if you don't try it, you might always have that nagging feeling of I didn't give it a good go, So yeah, that was one of the things I took away from what you mentioned. And then also the other thing that you probably heard this phrase as well being used now is like we're kind of in this era of portfolio careers where people are, and I would say that's probably where it's slightly different from, not everybody necessarily needs to be an entrepreneur or entrepreneurial in that sense, but it's like I don't have to just have a 9 to 5 job. There might be something else I'm passionate about, a cause. It could be something just as a hobby or whatever it might be, but can I maximize that as well and really enjoy the time I do with that, or is there a community of other people that I can connect to on that same topic as well and share in that sense. So yeah, I like that side of things, this era we're in that regard. I think it's encouraging more people to go out and try new things and experiment these things and naturally then, like you said a few minutes ago, if you have an idea that could generate value for people, if you can offer something and they do say, right, yeah, I'd pay good money for this, then all of a sudden now you have a business idea that you can decide if you want to build on it. So yeah, those are the things I sort of took away, hopefully.
Absolutely,
just for
Jimmy.
others.
And like just a couple of months back, I didn't know I could have another type of business, which now I'm just starting. But this one was what I shared, right, in the book that I have, right? And the fact that I did the fitness journey and successfully done so with a certain support system, a certain way, a certain approach, now I am able to provide this value for others, whether it is for personal, whether it's for corporate, and I could, well, I am making now a business out of it. I would be able to create a program out of it. I would be able to guide people and companies and for their employees to actually do. I am able to draw the parallel from my experience of doing in the fitness transformation to a transformation of a digital transformation or anything which is related to the company again by looking at this pattern, this common denominator, what is actually needed, right? And the psychology behind it. And so I fully agree with you that you take that first step and then you figure it out. And I think there was this question I saw in the Q&A.
I
Someone
was going to say, yeah, we had a couple of questions coming in now, which is good.
someone was asking like, how do I know whether I'm stuck because I'm scared or because it's really not the right path? You wouldn't know until you try, basically. And so when you try, and again, you can try 100% jump or do the side hustle part, and you will find out, because the most trickiest part, or the really trickiest part on this one, is then knowing when to persist and knowing when to pivot. Some people will make the mistake, I just need to persist, I need to persist all the time, never give up, but actually they need to pivot. Or the opposite was, now it's time to pivot, where we actually need to persist a bit more before we actually see the result and so on. And there is no way of doing that other than experiencing it by yourself, but also obviously looking at other people. I don't think we need to make all the mistake in the world, right? We can learn from mistake from other people as well. At least those that is common, let's say.
No, that's a really good point you just mentioned there about the fact that sometimes actually it's just about going that bit longer and not pivoting, but then other times it's admitting that okay, that we need to tweak something because it's we've put ourselves out there, we've had this idea and we're not getting the interest that we hoped for in that sense. So yeah, I mean, you said experience is one thing, but the other thing I think people sometimes it seems so simple as just ask people. The people who would be your customers, just ask them, what do you need? Like, what would help you? What would add value to your experience, your job, your whatever it is that your service is or your product is, and so on. And see, because quite often you'll get some great answers, but it's almost like people default to maybe just making assumptions. I think the customer wants this, or I don't think they would want this, because maybe they're projecting their own opinions onto it, whereas actually maybe it could be really valuable for them. So yeah, that's good. Yeah, thanks. And there's another question there, and I think yes, this also maybe has something. So I'll mute.
Yeah, Kiky, I was going to ask another question, not the one from Q&A, but I was also thinking, you see a lot of young entrepreneurs these days, like who start off business at like 20, 21, 25. But at the same time, there's literature talking about more matured entrepreneurs being a lot more successful. I read something very recently, like last week, that they've also found some of the most successful entrepreneurs are in their mid 40s. Do you see any kind of connection with the age? Do you think like this shift would be made at any point in life, or is it better when you have more experience to do that shift? What are your thoughts around age and the shift itself to a solopreneur or to an entrepreneur?
I think it doesn't have anything to do with the number of the age itself, but rather what has been experienced and accumulated in that span of time. And what I mean is that if someone have never tried to be an employee, I think it will be different. If he or she become a manager, a boss, an owner, it will be different if it is someone that has already been in the shoes of an employee, because then you would know, you would be able to empathize, you will be able to know what type of challenges, what type of expectation, what type of things that is appreciated or not appreciated from the employee point of view. So when you start your business, when you build your team, someone who has never been in this position of as an employee might then take things just by assumption, and then it will just not good, because you maybe you have heard like the typical people will say, oh, just do to others of what you want to done to you, right? But I think there is another level, which is do to others on how they want to be, or treat others how they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. Only the very minimum is don't do things that you don't want to do, but even better if you can do things, treat them the way they want to be treated. And because of this experience being an employee, I think it makes those entrepreneurs in the mid 40 and above become better, because from building the team is better, from looking at the problem is better with the experience and so on. So the age itself doesn't matter, but if the person has this young entrepreneurs and so on have had that experience of being employee, whether it is through internship, whether it is through summer job, whether it is through things, they will be able to do empathize as well, and they would probably be bolder in doing things, which is I think is a good things as well. And just like what Jamie said earlier, they have the advantage of time. If they fail, so what, right? Then they just come back and then do other things. They have so much time in front of them. So I think if I were to really come back from to my young girl age, I would just try to accumulate that as early as possible, thinking about it at least consciously, looking at the mentors, discussing with people, so that I'm ready. I have this friend who's coming from a rich family, whose father was telling her, you need to work first, you need to be an employee first. You go and work in McDonald's, you go and work in whatever it is, so that you know how to be an employee, how does it feel like, before you take over the family business of having 5,000 workers in the factory. I want you to go all this through so that you could become a better, much better boss,
I
compared
like
to
that.
suddenly have the company. Right? So
Yeah, that's really cool actually. I mean, I know I've seen it with other business owners before. Like one that comes to mind is the founder of Deliveroo, for example. For even in the first few years that the business was building up, he would at least once a week he'd be out on his bike doing the deliveries himself as well, because he wanted to get the experience of customers receiving the food, but also the experience that the riders would have, so that he could also empathize better. I think so. Yeah, I love that. I think that's a really good idea. I think we could all do with being more empathetic. Even coming back to your point about treating people how they'd like to be treated as well, and trying to connect with them. You don't have to agree with them, but to try and understand where they're coming from as much as possible. So yeah, there is another question in there as well. Another anonymous attendee had said, what if the moment we needed to change already happened and we didn't notice? So,
yes.
how would you answer that one?
Okay, so I think that happened so many times actually, many times, and that's why it was the importance. It was important to reflect back at your Kairos moment. You look back since the day you can start to remember. What are the things that has changed that if you think back, it was, oh, that was a really good change. Whether it was intentional, non-intentional, whether it was external factor or internal factor. Because when we reflect back into those moments, we could start identifying the pattern. Was it internal drive? Did I do something differently that I can do again so that I can actually repeat the success in this case? who is around me, what type of people do I have around me, who are my supporter, who was the one that is there when I'm really in need, what was my feeling, how did I do about it, what was my behavior at that time, and so on and so forth. And so both for good things that happen and also bad things, because we would learn a lot of not doing the same thing again, right? And I think that was the part which is important. It's quite often, I will say it will happen more than what we realize, that change already happened and we didn't notice. But there will always this part that you can use it as another switch for your future change, your future transformation. Whether it is scaling your business, whether it is opening a business, whether it is changing your fitness state, and so on. So yes, I'm pretty sure whoever asked the question, you have had a lot of change and without noticing. Only until you reflect back, then my hope for you is that you will be able to use all those attributes around it on demand for your next change and transformation.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Kiky. I feel like we've all had that, to be honest, like moments where, yeah, I mean, hindsight is great in a sense to help us reflect on these things, but it can be learning as well. You just said, like, I think you can, if you can at least maybe look at it like, okay, what were the feelings I had, like negative, positive, what was the external forces at that time? And then you can start to at least think in your head, okay, well, based on those things, even though I don't necessarily know, it's not like a fully formed feeling in that sense, but if you see the signs, you might be able to see them happening at the next time it happens, because there's bound to be some other change in the future as well, especially the life of an entrepreneur, solopreneur, some of our members that join us on calls and stuff. So yeah,
absolutely
awesome. Do we have any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes left. We've got, unless or if anybody wants to also put their hand up and share their own experience, they're very welcome to do so as well. Does Louis, do you fancy it as well from your point of view? Don't know if he wants to jump in.
Hi, Louis. Do you remember when I met you for that lunch? And saying that, okay, this was my first week of, I think it was first week or second week of entrepreneurship, and then what type of things that we could do together, and so on. Louis answer, maybe Kiky should tell what he is doing. Oh, you mean what I'm doing right now in terms of the business? Is that what you meant, Louis? I would assume so. So
Can I speak now?
She should be on
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Go
It's
ahead,
easier
Louis.
than, I was just thinking about, maybe not everybody knows what you actually do. You're talking a lot about all your concerns and what you actually were thinking about starting your business, but maybe you should spend the last 3 minutes on telling what you're selling, a little bit about what you actually do. And yes, I remember that. And I actually just had Peter Harmark here for the last 4 or 5 days visiting Singapore. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So, yes.
All right, sure. So in the past 2 years plus, I've been having my own business consulting boutique, boutique, where I consulted. I was doing a fractional roles for a couple of companies, different companies since then. And for example, since last year, I was doing I was serving 5 clients in parallel in different roles. I was the CTO in residence of a food and beverage company, a group in Indonesia, where they had, when I was joining them, they had about 200 restaurants in Indonesia. And then throughout my role as their CTO, they were also doing an expansion. And when I finished my mission with them, they were at 300 restaurants. I've never seen a company open 100 restaurants across Indonesia in 1 year. And so behind the scene, there is a lot of
100.
100 restaurants. Yes, so it's like one opening
That's a
after
lot.
the other every other week. It was impressive. And behind the scene, then you need to have those technology to support from the front office, back office, how to stay relevant, how to use the technology in the traditional business such as food and beverage, from the sales point of view to the supply chain, and so on. Then in parallel, because of the nature of my business, I was also hired as a head of sales in residence for a cryptocurrency company that is doing the AML. And so their tools and their service is being used by the law enforcement agency to actually capture, let's say, bad actors that was either doing a scam, doing fraud, and so on behind the scenes. And one of the result that was public was how they work with the Interpol to actually apprehend suspects in different countries. 14 of them was captured utilizing the service and the tools along with other partners, of course. I was in parallel serving as a strategic advisor for an aerospace business in Singapore, where I brought along my partners development team to actually create a in-house bespoke software for them. So I use my variety of roles and experience before and apply that to what is needed by the client actually. In one hand, I was helping them to define the pricing strategy, to sell things to their clients. In another client, I was doing purely on the technology side, helping the development team to have the structure, to have the working process, and so on. And on some others was setting up the technology vision for them to help with the workshops, the shop floor, and so on. And this year, what I wanted to do is then making use of my recent experience with the fitness part, where I put everything into this book, and I want to do a scaling by using the framework that I put over here and transforming it into something that can be consumed by individuals as well as by corporates for their employee and their processes. And so in a nutshell, I'm a business consultant. And right now, I'm also, the last but not least, I'm helping people that is aspired to write their first book based on my experience from doing A to Z, from ideation until doing a book launch, all by myself with couple of support here and there, obviously, within 4 months. And so I can help aspired authors. Many of us have stories that is worth to tell, worth to be shared. And so I'm helping people that want to have the same journey as me.
Amazing. I mean, to go software development, business development, consulting, starting your own business, all we learned from a nutrition point of view as well. Cryptocurrency, food and beverage, like that's quite a journey so far, which is pretty impressive. So thank you for sharing that with us today. And we're about to hit the end of the time, unfortunately, but I'd love to maybe see if we could do another session in the future around that topic, as you said, about just putting together a book and material, because I think even more so now, because I know there's so many technologies out there, like a lot of AI tools and things like that that is doing copywriting for people. There's still a lot of us, the humanity, the side of us that we can share with other people and connect with in that sense. So yeah, I would love to maybe do a session on that in the future on how fellow business owners, entrepreneurs, things like that are in the member base could also benefit from that. Yeah, that learning.
It will be a pleasure. And for the attendees, I would share with you later, Jamie and Yasas, a few more link maybe toward things that I do. I just launched my newsletter, and I'm building the community for the switch on and so on. So I will share with you after this at different lines, and if you can put it into at the end of the
Sure.
recording, that would be great as well.
Yeah. We'll add that in there.
Yeah, and I would love for people to just reach out to LinkedIn and connect with me as well. That would be lovely.
Do you have a URL you want to put in the chat, maybe, that just for those so they
Sure.
can see that?
So
I think it's your name, right? .com.
yeah, so
Right.
this is my website. This is my newsletter that I just launched last week. And
then I'll also do while you're doing that.
this is where you can find my book. And this is the community that I'm building, yes. And that's my LinkedIn. You can just find
Yep.
under Kiky Shannon LinkedIn, yes.
Yeah, just for those who are unaware, so you can connect with Kiky Hero's LinkedIn. And he's also sharing great posts as well. I know you're quite active on your social media as well, which is cool. I saw some of your Instagram posts and things like that as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, please do connect with him and keep that conversation going, because I'm sure there's a bunch of value you can offer to various members of the Do It Circle community that are going on their own journeys. So yeah, thank you again, Kiky, for sharing that.
Will be a pleasure.
Great.
Thank you very much, Kiky.
Thank you, as well, Jamie. Thanks, everyone.
Have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.